So we will be covering a few more examples on the timing-based reactions. Now, first things first, it is key to understand what are our timings and how we can all, of course, compromise them in a list, which I have done in front of you. As you can see, of course, we have around 6 timings. So the first timing we have is, of course, Frankfurt Open. Now, this depends on your UTC. So please do ensure that you either convert the UTC based on your time zone or use the UTC we provide essentially, which will be between UTC +2 and +1, depending on where we are as well ourselves. So you can, of course, use that, as we will be always using these timings, and maybe you become more familiar with these timings in themselves. So that would be, of course, 8 a.m. as you can see, Frankfurt Open, UTC +2. That is, of course, your first timing-based reaction of the day. Now, we're not including Asia in that sense. Asia is a timing session, but our timing-based reactions on the LIT way of doing things, Frankfurt Open is essentially our first ideal trade opportunity if presented. So next things next is we have, of course, London Open. London Open is 9 a.m. UTC +2. Again, convert if you prefer to convert in your own time zone. If not, use UTC +2. So that will be, of course, 9 a.m., 1 hour after Frankfurt Open. And that is comprised, of course, of a 1 hour window. So that will be 9 a.m. till 10 a.m. UTC +2, essentially the window of London Open the LIT way. And then, of course, the third reaction of the timing-based possibilities is, of course, magic manipulation minutes 1. And that is at 10:30 a.m. UTC +2. Again, this is around we would say around a 10-minute window either side where the reaction can occur. So that could be 10:20 a.m. or 10:40 a.m. So between that, so it could be around a half an hour gap. So we give it a few minutes. It doesn't have to be to the minute, but it can, of course. It's more ideal when it's to the minute or a few minutes off, as opposed to nearing the 10 minutes away from, of course, magic manipulation minutes. Then we have, of course, magic manipulation minutes 2, again, MM2 for short, and that will be, of course, 12:30 p.m. UTC +2, and that is 2 hours, of course, after MM1. Again, same concept of the 10-minute window either side, so that will be 12:20 or 12:40. So between that as the maximum window outside of the 12:30 to the minute window. And then, of course, we have, of course, our fifth main session timing, which is New York Open, as you can see, and that is 3 p.m. UTC +2. Again, this is one of our main trading windows, as well as London Open, where the prime sessions, as well as most of our students trade. And this is the key one. So we actually use 1 hour after the main New York Open, quote unquote, in the New York Stock Exchange. So we use the hour after that and let the price action develop based on our strategy. So that will be a very key window, and we will be showing you some examples on that one. So yeah. Next, we have, of course, London Close. Our London Close is our last timing-based session of the day, and we choose, of course, 5 p.m., which is the actual time of London Close, and that's 5 p.m. UTC +2. So, of course, the London Close reaction is usually less volatile, as it's, of course, when the markets essentially become weaker, people stop trading for the day, etc. So your reactions then are likely not to be so amazing. However, you do get the amazing reactions too. But the key sessions are, of course, on New York Open, London Open, and Frankfurt Open as the session timings. And then, of course, you have the key magic manipulation minutes windows, and London Close being the last, of course, session of the day. So it's key you keep these sessions in your head, revise them, remember them, because it may get a little bit overwhelming in the sense of trying to apply the build-up, inducement, mitigation alongside timing. So you're going to have a lot to remember, but it will click within a finger once you do get it. So don't worry about that. So now we will be moving on to our first example. As you can see on the chart in front of us, we have already got Asia session drawn in the pink box, or purple box, should I say. And of course, we will be going step by step of what is happening. So what we have, Frankfurt open at 8:35 in this case. Again, it can be 8 till essentially London open, which is 9, so that 1 hour window. So in this case, we get our inducement here. It's a bit hard to see, but the reaction ended exactly over here. So Frankfurt open inducement low of Asia low. And of course, these liquidity build up. So this reaction from here to here, drawing's not so great at this point, are the vector candles that, of course, allow for the inducement. So now we've had our inducement low of Frankfurt open. That means London open. Sorry, did I say New York? I meant Frankfurt open allows then for London open to allow for a continuation. So that's key to understand, that if we have a Frankfurt open inducement of the main areas, we can likely expect London to continue that inducement, or possibly even mitigate areas over here on the 1 minute, which likely would have happened. Okay, so then what we have, of course, price in London open induces these liquidity points over here. And of course, outside of these areas, Asia high as well. Now, before it induces high, it does, of course, tease us a little bit. Smart money traders, look in the 1 minute in this zone right here. Take these sells, assume it's a break of structure at this point over here when it's an inducement, and expect price to continue. However, of course, that doesn't happen because we get our reaction up top. So now if we go in the next slide, our timing-based reaction here is perfect. And this is to the minute on, of course, magic manipulation minutes 1. As you can see, 10:30. Again, UTC plus 2 timings are the ones I'm using. So we have our inducement now outside of Asia high. And of course, that allows for them price to completely vector, continue bearish, and take out these lows now that led to price taking out Asia high. So we have, of course, magic manipulation minutes, allowing for the continuation, get your mitigation areas in here. And then, of course, what we have is our New York open reaction. So now price has induced enough liquidity. We start getting channels like such, right? And then price induces low one last time over here, even gets a fractal buildup of liquidity here, which are your support buyers. So people are buying at this point. You get these perfect vector candles over here. Price induces low. Now we get a reaction higher. So what that could possibly mean is that price can now take out, of course, these areas of liquidity and then continue higher, essentially, from areas like such on the 1 minute. So as you can see, price comes lower. Remember, our low is at this point here. Reacts pretty low in there, so likely the 1 minute, of course. It reacts in there, and then what we can get is our continuation then bullish, taking out all of this liquidity here. This being your smart money trap, of course, and then, of course, a continuation higher, and you get your consecutive mitigations. So that's key to understand. Of course, the cycle plays, the targets, of course, liquidity to the left, as well as the trend line we had over here, price vectors lower. So, of course, the characteristics, identifying the right type of price action relevant to, of course, timings, of course, your London close reaction essentially helped us catalyze also. It's a little bit slow again, not the craziest volatility. Nevertheless, of course, price will eventually slow down towards the end of the trading day. So if we go on our next example, again, Asia session is already preset over here. What we have, of course, is Frankfurt open, right? Frankfurt open, we can have one of our trades, not going to mention it yet, but we have a potential trade in this area. You will be taught this in the upcoming modules, possibly next week, and how you can trade the fast and furious trade, which is a cycle variation. So what we have, potential mitigation area, and how we can trade into the inducement. And what that means is we can take a trade which will take us either to the low or the high to break out of the Asia range. And what that means is, of course, you likely will then get a reversal in the opposite way. So if we induce high, we must close our trade and then, of course, aim to take the sells. So, of course, you will be taught that later on, but nevertheless, of course, we get our reaction, as mentioned, Frankfurt Open, again 25 minutes after. It's not a to the minute type of reaction. Nevertheless, we get, of course, our London Open continuation. Again, these are 5-minute charts, so you can see the 1-minute mitigations in here. We also have multiple confluences that can allow us to take these trades as well. So what we get is our continuation of London Open, a bit like the previous example, and likely we will expect price to take out the Asia high over here. Currently, what it's doing actually perfectly is creating the illusion of equal highs or support, resistance, sorry. And then, of course, people prematurely selling in this candle over here. So if we see what happens next, perfect, we get the perfect inducement high right here in the London Open window. What that means is price can now continue bearish. It takes out all of these levels of liquidity, the trend line buildups over here, and then of course Asia low, as you can see down here. Again, through that buildup, we have the same characteristic of this trend line. Vector candles bearish, so it essentially breaks that trend line anyways. You even get these perfect equal lows over here. Understanding, of course, the New York Open reaction for a continuation, because we have to look to the left. So the likely chances are there is more price action to the left, again, in the form of trend lines, liquidity, buildups, whatever it be, where then price now can mitigate this area, taking out these levels of liquidity here. So this becomes our inducement of this liquidity over here that we can now get a continuation. Again, we get our mitigation in New York Open, kind of to the minute, I would say, probably 5 minutes off as it's a 5-minute chart. And then, of course, we can get our continuation, right? So let's see how that plays out. Perfect. We get the continuation lower. We start breaking these lows over here. So this inducement is important to understand that when we have a continuation and a greater target to the left, such as a medium or major inducement, it's important that price likely will veer towards those areas as opposed to this inducement we have here of the lows. Now that's a perfect reaction for a pullback, but remember we have a mitigation, and this was a really nice entry helper reaction too. Again, you will be taught that later. And then of course you can see the purple line of here, that's our London close at 5 p.m. UTC plus 2. It just enables our continuation. It probably will be a very slow for the rest of it anyways. Again, we have another example. Again, you can see the liquidity here is pretty clear. So you can see these sellers over here. Stretch that line for everyone that wants to sell. And then, of course, we get these crazy liquidity buildups here too. Again, it's very fractal. You're going to see it everywhere. Price will likely come higher to continue lower. So we can see the support over here. Price does give us these really nice vectors. So what that likely could mean is that this point in Frankfurt Open, or maybe a little bit before, whatever it be, a few minutes off, this could allow us to trade into the inducement, taking out our support or resistance bias, apologies. So let's see how that plays out. We can see perfect, not to the minute, unfortunately. It is 10 minutes outside of Frankfurt Open. Nevertheless, it completes purpose. Remember, timings are orientation. Sometimes it will be a little bit off by a few minutes. Then what we get, of course, the Frankfurt Open, giving us really nice vector candles. So this in itself will be a very nice trade. You see a mitigation on the 1M there too. You trade into the inducement. So the likelihood is in London Open, we will get, of course, our reaction to then take the sells. So we're going to wait and see for our ideal reaction. We, of course, do have a reaction here that gives us this reaction. However, that's not enough for us to just take a sell just because it induces Asia high. We also have, of course, multiple confluences that will enable us to understand if price is ready to then reverse. So as you can see, price didn't give us, of course, this as the sustained inducement, but instead, of course, this reaction over here. Nevertheless, of course, what happens, we get mitigation areas in here on the 1 minute that enables price to then continue bearish. So what's important to understand as well is we have, of course, entry helper confluences that help us understand and how valid a trade is as well. That's the key thing, or when not to take a trade. So that's another key area we also must understand. So what we have upcoming now is, of course, the magic manipulation minutes 2. We have a perfect reaction of MM2 to the minute, as you can see. Again, this is a mitigation of the 1 minute over here. Again, we get a pullback after breaking these internal structures here to the left. We break the structures, react at a smart money trap. Trap, of course, doesn't sustain. Then we get our continuation breaking out, of course, Asia low, which actually is all the way down here. So again, now what we have, of course, New York Open. So let's see what New York Open presents. Of course, a continuation. Again, the continuation here is really, really nice because what we get actually is a mitigation in this area. Again, 1 minute, and it's the entry helper confluences. Again, you will be taught this again with the entry helper as well, and how you can, of course, build up the entries. So let's see how that, of course, then looks. It's perfect vector candles, perfect reaction, taking out these premature sellers. The sellers also had buyers in this support area over here. They get, of course, these vectors, inducing them. We get our inducement low to continue higher. Now, in areas like such where we get this inducement, we may not have the right confluences to take that pullback to then take this sell over here. Nevertheless, you don't take this trade then. You just take the sell, which is a pro trend, of course. So let's see another example of more timing-based reactions. So in this case, of course, we have London Open and, of course, Frankfurt Open. It's trading very close together. This was a very slow day for whatever reason. It looks like end of month, as it's 31st of May. That makes a lot of sense. And likely June, of course, will give us a really nice reaction in that sense. So we're going to wait. So that's why it's important that just because we've had a London Open appear, we haven't even broken out of Asia high or low. Likelihood, of course, Asia high being the first target. So it's important we don't just take any trade for the sake of it. But what we can see is this really nice channel build up over here, even in London Open. So this will be invalidated, right? So it's important we wait. And maybe magic manipulation minutes can provide us the inducement of this London Open reaction over here. So it takes out the low after inducing high of Asia, right? So let's see what happens. Perfect, we get our inducement high. It's ever so slight, but that's where it becomes really nice because these ever so slight ones usually give the really strong reactions. It's usually enough to tell us, well, smart money traders likely would have got in anyways. Well, that was horrible. Let's draw that again. I'm not good at drawing straight lines, but try. So your smart money traders would have likely got in around here. They get induced by a pip or two, and then of course price reverses on them, as you can see. This is perfect magic manipulation minutes. Not to the minute. It's again the absolute maximum time window outside of magic manipulation minutes, which is of course 10 minutes prior. But nevertheless, we get a perfect reaction, lines up perfectly with the inducement of Asia high. Price can then of course continue bearish, take out Asia low, which it of course just did over here. Now, of course, our next reaction is of course New York Open. What do we get? Okay, price is now continuing after inducing Asia low. We can also get hesitation, usually allows for a pullback in here, get a mitigation, takes out this liquidity. Now the chances are, of course, price may induce one last time or mitigates, whatever it be. Again, with the confluences, you'll be able to understand exactly what that would be. So perfect, we induce the high as mentioned in New York Open, then price, of course, continues bearish forever. Well, not forever, but you get the point, I guess. So it's really key to understand that, of course, the timing-based reactions. Now, here's a good one as well. The purple line, remember, this is my London close, and you can change colors if you prefer. But in this scenario, it doesn't really provide much. It does actually give us a nice reaction bearish. So that's where the whole cycle play is more important. You get the mitigation this is your trade. However, timing wise, it's a little bit late in the day. The cycle will always repeat itself. Timing is an orientation that allows us to, of course, section our trading style, the day, and of course, for us to plan better. Nevertheless, a trade like this is perfect. That's perfect. It breaks out, of course, this low as well. So that's a perfect trade. It's just a little bit out of timing. Doesn't mean you can't take it. Just important to understand that all of these timing-based reactions and how they keep appearing again and again and again, you're bound to get at least 2 or 3 perfect ones on one pair in a day. So I would highly recommend you backtest this and, of course, apply this understanding. Just draw a line. You can use this tool on TradingView. It's just a horizontal array, I think. And then, of course, line it up on the timing-based reactions, backtest that as well, and just see how the price reacted in those areas. Again, do be accepting that it could be a few minutes off. There's nothing wrong with that. So yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed that. And again, practice.